Now joining for some live insight into the quest for accountability is Elvis Asia, a legal practitioner and also social reform campaigner. He joins us in Lagos. Elvis, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. Elvis, it's a big question. Where did the money go? 10.4 trillion naira was distributed to states and local governments from the resource generated after subsidy removal. So what, in your view, Elvis, is the legal obligation on these governments to publicly account for how that money was spent? Elvis.
Thank you for having me on the program. This is a very important question. And I believe that every Nigerian today is asking that question. Perhaps they've not had the voice to come to put it out publicly. Since 2023, when this administration removed subsidy, we have heard of, humongous amounts being shared by the three levels of government: the federal government, the state government, and the local government. But unfortunately, the people are not feeling the impact of these humongous amounts being shared. And so it raises, it gives legitimacy to this question that NECA is raising, that, it's important for government to account, because in view of subsidy removal, Nigerians are being made to face very harrowing, financial experience, in terms of paying more for fuel and the, incidental impact of that, transportation costs, inflation. For example, in a place like Lagos, you can't even rent any house now. Mm-hmm. And so people are feeling the impact. So what is the government doing about it? So there's an obligation, by government to account for how these funds are being managed.
Mm-hmm. That forms the basis, the stem of my next question here, Elvis. Elvis, that forms the stem of my next question here. If a state government receives billions of naira in public funds, but it fails to disclose how it was utilized, I wonder what the legal and constitutional mechanisms are available to citizens to actually demand for that and demand for accountability. What are those instruments available?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of instruments available. The people have the right the people have the right to ask for questions. You can, under FOI legislations in the country, freedom of information, you can actually write to government agencies to find out how these funds are being managed. The various arms of government are coming up with budgets. They claim that they have budgeted so much every year. So Nigerians have the right to ask questions. You can write FOI information, and when they fail to do so, there are also legal steps that could be taken.
Are you saying, Elvis?
Force government.
Are you saying, Elvis, that as an individual, not a CSO now, as an individual, I can actually write and I should expect response? And if that response does not come,
any member, once you are you're a Nigerian, you have a right. It doesn't have to be an NGO. It doesn't have to. Every Nigerian has a right to ask questions, and I think that's what we must start doing. Our local governments we must ask them what they're doing with the funds, because I'm just back from my state, Edo State, for example, and I couldn't move around. The roads are very poor. Beyond the funny flyover bridge that the governor seems to be doing there, there's virtually nothing. You can't move around once it rains for 5 minutes. The roads are probably the worst in any parts of the country at the moment. And then you ask yourself, with all the trillions and billions we are hearing in terms of what is being shared, what is the impact on the people? So the people have, every Nigerian has a right. And I think that's what we must doing. Our local governments we must ask them what they're doing with the funds, because I'm just back from my state, Edo State, for example, and I couldn't move around. The roads are very poor. Beyond the funny flyover bridge that the governor seems to be doing there, there's virtually nothing. You can't move around once it rains for 5 minutes. The roads are probably the worst in any parts of the country at the moment. And then you ask yourself, with all the trillions and billions we are hearing in terms of what is being shared, what is the impact on the people? So the people have the right, constitutionally, legally speaking, to actually demand for accountability.
All right, now, Elvis, so let's take it practically now. You're just back from Edo State. You hate the flyover. You want to ask for accountability. What's your first step? To which unit, which parastatal, which agency would you write to, and what do you expect back from them? If that doesn't come, what's your next move as an individual?
Well, as an individual, you can actually write to the head of service or to the secretary of the state government or whichever arm of government you want to write. If it's local government, you can write to the government chairman to demand for information regarding the budgets, budget implementation, regarding funds that have been received from federal accounts and how they have been used. And when they fail to do so, there are timelines within the law within which you can actually approach the court, to seek to compel them to do so. And that's what we all should be thinking. And I'm seriously considering doing that as regards to where I'm coming from, because I'm just talking about going to Benin City, but you can't even go to the rural communities. And so the local government system has completely collapsed. And I think the people at local government level must be guided on how we can really compel local government to become transparent and to account for these monies. We can't be receiving billions and billions every month, and there's nothing to show for it. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
When I was growing up in my village, we used to have extension workers coming to teach my father, who was a cocoa farmer, how to grow cocoa. We used to have sanitary inspectors coming to our villages to ensure that the pit toilets are properly done to avoid outbreak of diseases. We used to have health centers in very close by. We had the police station, we had the courts and everything around. And today we don't have any of that. And these are things that should be provided by all these monies that somebody is just because the only explanation that you have for it is that somebody is stealing the money. If not, why are we not seeing it in the lives of the people? The people don't feel it. Primary healthcare centers are completely gone. Right. These are things that we were taking for granted when we were growing up.
Elvis, I'm running out of time, but real quick. So the federal government has now disclosed its own figures, and I'm wondering if this disclosure should automatically trigger an audit of what every single state and local government received and spent, and who should have the authority to actually conduct that audit?
It should trickle down to every levels of government. But I have to say that just merely putting out figures is not sufficient. That's not accountability. Yes, that's the starting point. You can start by putting out the figures to say, "Look, this is how much you have received." But you need to tell us, what you have done with what you have received over the period. It's not enough to just say, "Oh, I received 5 naira over between 2003 and 2025 or 2026." That is just a tip of the iceberg in terms of what is required, to be accountable to the people. So now you have to break it down to what you have done with education, to what you have done with the health facilities across the country, to what you have done with our roads, to what you have done with everything that the people should honorably enjoy. Because as it stands, you are talking about 10 trillion, 5 trillion, or whatever trillion. The people are not feeling it. The people at the lowest rung of society, as we speak, are feeling the heat. They are feeling it. If I want to borrow from Davido's song, they are feeling it negatively. And so it is not enough to just put out figures. And in fact, putting out figures in the manner they have done now is even more scary, right? I expect a breakdown so that we can actually have a sense of what is going on. Because the whole idea of removing the subsidy was the information we were giving was that when that is done, the government will have more money to put into social services, to put into infrastructure, to put into all the things that will make life more meaningful for the people. But today, the people are crying more than they were crying yesterday. And so it is not enough to just put our figures. We must go beyond putting our figures. We must compare all levels of government to put our figures. And then we must also compare them to tell us what they have been doing with the money. And the arm of government, the people that should be doing that, it cuts across everybody. The National Assembly, the state houses of assembly, civil society organization. Because of course, why I said that not Nigerians can actually ask questions, but it's probably better if you have groups coming together to do so. You have civil society groups, and so we all must contribute in this quest to find out what we have done with our subsidy funds. Otherwise, those who may be making away with it will just go scot-free as they have always done.
Elvis, thank you very much for having this conversation with us. It's not just about counting the figures. They must be compelled to also tell what they've done with those figures. Thank you very much, Elvis.